I want to say that when Richard contacted me, I was really excited about this. I'd heard a lot about Columbus. I saw the movie that came out a few years ago that takes place there, sort of a love story with the architecture in the background that was really got me interested. And also, my dad was a movie editor, and one of his best projects was doing the sound editing for Breaking Away, which I've watched like 100 times and feel I know Bloomington really well. And I had a chance to go visit a friend who went to Bloomington and actually swim in a quarry years ago. So.
Well, just on behalf of the city of Columbus, and Mayor, this is not my position, but we're welcome. We'll find housing for any of the designers here that would like to move to Columbus.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Richard. So it's running late. I welcome you to use the chat bar to tell me what's on your mind. I know it's many things, COVID being one of them, but other things that you've shared this evening. And what we do at Gale is focus on public space and public life, which I think is tied to all of these topics that have been discussed, but isn't always immediately or directly connected. But that's what I'll talk about today. And I do welcome you to put your thoughts in the chat. So I work for Gale. We are an urban design consultancy that was founded in Denmark 20 years ago and has offices in New York and San Francisco. We are a fairly small firm, but have worked in almost 300 cities around the world, mostly with mayors and with city leaders who are trying to center people in the city development process. We're architects and landscape architects, planners in our team, but also sociologists, anthropologists, and people with a social science background. And this is important to us because we feel that, in order to make people visible in the city making process, to put them first, as Ken said, and has been echoed, we really have to understand where they're moving, what the human experience is like in cities, and first know where is that life taking place. Then we can start to think about the spaces around it and how the built form should respond to that life. To do this, we really need to think about human experience and what it actually feels like when you're in a space. Are you comfortable? Do you feel safe? Do you feel engaged? Can you get around? Could you get around if you were with someone with a mobility impairment or a stroller? And think about these things first and foremost. And we can't know exactly how people behave right off the bat. So we take an approach of measure, test, refine, where we like to study what people do in space, where they move, how that changes by time of day, test out some ideas, pilot projects, temporary interventions, see how those work, refine the ideas before we get into the capital construction. To do this, we actually get out and observe. We spend a lot of time just walking around, looking at the conditions in a place. It's pretty analog, actually. We have an app now that we can use, so it's not pen and paper anymore. But we actually feel it's super important to not just use sensors to get data on volume of activity, but to be there and understand who else is out there and who isn't there too. And we do this not because we just love to make charts and see the numbers, though that is important for knowing patterns, but it's to get a sense for the stories about what people are doing in your city and your town, and how we can use that to inform our design and investment decisions moving forward. This data collection for us is very qualitative as well, and we have something we use called these 12 quality criteria that allow us to evaluate the quality of a space in terms of how safe it feels from traffic, from the elements, how comfortable you can feel, and how much enjoyment you might find there. Because sometimes we forget the most obvious things when we're designing our cities. simple things like when it's hot, we seek shade. But if it's cold, we look for the sun, right? And we can actually respond to those basic human tenets in the projects we do. And we see now with some work we're doing related to COVID testing that these things are not just nice to have, but actually the quality of the environment is, I mean, not only does it affect our health overall, but it can even affect how likely you are to get a COVID test. So, you know, all of this helps us understand that human experience that I heard all the other speakers talk about, which is great, which is very different than traffic models and engineering plans and even, you know, the models that we can make as architects. We have to really see how they behave. And this is not rocket science at all, but as those of you working with your planners in your towns probably know, we so rarely ask this question about people and the experience we want to create at the outset of a project, and instead it's asked at the end of a project. And so many scopes of work and RFPs are guided by a focus on the engineering parameters or what something should look like, but not necessarily the experience that we wanted to create for people. So we think that that process needs to be inverted, and that, as our founder says, we really need to measure what we care about. This is how the firm has worked with the city of Copenhagen, completely different than our North American cities. So I don't share it because I think we need Copenhagen in the US, we don't, but we can look at the approach they took starting back in the 60s to say, wait a second, do we really want all of our streets to be dominated by traffic, or could we actually start to make these public spaces for people? And they started small by counting just one main commercial street, and from there have built out this network of pedestrian and bike streets that they're constantly evolving, constantly remeasuring, so that today you have, well, not today, right now, but in normal times, spaces that look like that. We've also worked on applying a similar process to the city of New York and helped study Broadway and Times Square, creating a series of pilot projects and concept designs that help the city then find the funding to actually invest in the permanent plaza that's there now. And on a smaller scale, you know, we've done a lot of work around North America. Recently in Fort Wayne, we did a public realm plan for the city there and focused on activating the alleyways, which the city has really been working on doing. And I've seen some great pictures of the spaces. Haven't been back since we did the project, but we've worked with the city of West Palm Beach to turn a vacant lot into a community meeting space, test out how this park could be used before the formal plans were made, and in the process help build trust between a community that had been disinvested in for years, build that trust back up with the city. On a different note, we worked with the Walton Family Foundation to develop a framework for evaluating and guiding investment of design excellence. And I share that because I heard a number of mayors talk about local identity and celebrating local culture, even as their aspirations to grow and to welcome new people in. And our work in this Northwest region of Arkansas was really focused on that and how we could bring a sense of you know, celebrate all the new development happening there, but also not lose sight of what makes that place special and the history. I have a few other project examples here, but for the sake of time, I think I'm gonna skip, well, to this one, which was work we did in the city of Carmel around the Monon Trail, which I think James mentioned too, and working with them to figure out how this great trail could also turn into a place that invited people to stay and spend more time in Carmel. that's what that looked like. And I end here with a photo of my, at the time, 2-year-old daughter from the spring in New York. This is at the height of COVID. And I don't know what it was like in your towns, but in New York, at 7 p.m. every night, people came outside to clap and make noise for all the healthcare and essential workers. And I share it because I think, as we think about what does now, what's going on now, teach us about what public space will be like in the future. One of the key things is that we've seen, and in the studies we've done at Gale, is our spaces are for connecting with people, and they have been vital for doing that, for our mental health, physical health, and staying sane at these times. And we know people are living more locally now and will continue to do that. And it's really important that we continue to think about how the most mundane neighborhood spaces can really welcome people outside and create those opportunities for connection. Whew. That's it.
That was awesome, Julia. Thank you for going through your talk, and I'm sorry if you felt rushed. And again, I'm sorry that we went late.